Thanks everybody for coming out. We're going to have one different room, I guess, every meeting for a little bit. City Hall's coming along well though, so we'll be home before you know it. It is 6:32. We'll call our meeting to order and begin with the invocation and the pledge. Lord our God and Father in heaven, be with us as we are gathered here. Through your Spirit, let our hearts grow an understanding of how we can serve you rightly and live as you want us to live. Help us hold fast to all that is good. Free us more and more from everything that hinders us, from all that is evil. Show your loving kindness to us and to our loved ones, wherever they may be. Hear every human heart that sighs to you, pleading that what is of heaven may overcome what is of earth. Amen. Amen. There is a flag out in the front of the building of the driveway. We're going to say the pledge without the flag in the room, but that'll be okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. That brings us to item 3 on our agenda, which is public comments. Nancy? Mr. Mosley.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. My name is Jeff Mosley. I represent the owner of a 19-acre tract of land that's located at 34140 Farm to Market 1093. This property is just outside the Simonton city limits, but within Simonton's extraterritorial jurisdiction. And tonight I'm here to share my client's long-term vision for bringing much-needed services, jobs, and housing into the community. He and his family have been in discussions regarding the future development of this parcel focused on its benefits. And importantly, on behalf of the landowner, I formally wanted to announce his intent to begin the legal process of de-annexation from Simonton's ETJ. I did bring us some slides that I can give to you digitally, and I can pass those along, but that is the parcel location. But the owner believes this transition will open up new opportunities for both Simonton and Fulshire to collaborate in ways benefiting the larger region and allow the property to align more closely with plans and restore services available to the Fulshire ETJ. There are 2 projects under consideration for this 19-acre tract, and one of them, of course, is a mixed-use commercial development, and it is being labeled as Fulshire Square. The second option, Fulshire Place, is designed as a workforce neighborhood addressing critical housing needs in this region. Of course, these are just concepts, but it gives you an idea of how the 19 acres could be developed. In summary, members, the landowner believes the tract's brightest future lies within the neighboring Fulshire ETJ, and it is his intention to immediately begin the legal process for de-annexation from the extraterritorial jurisdiction of Simonton. And I'd be pleased to visit with city staff afterwards. I know, Mayor, we're restricted due to open meetings on any questions at this time, but I'm pleased to make myself available, and I've given my business card to each of you, and you've got my cell phone number as well. But thank you for allowing me to have this 3 minutes to present my client's vision. A pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'll send a digital, I'll pick up those slides after you've looked at them, but I will send a digital copy for your records, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. That'd be great. All right. Who is next? Miss Nancy? Mr. Saversilla.
Can I reserve my public comments for the discussion on the EDC budget?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Nance.
Is it, so I see the Texas Pride guys right here. I really, instead of doing it in open forum, I'll probably just talk to him privately after this. Or just wait to hear what comments or anything he has to say prior to that, because he may address some of the concerns I have, so I'd like to give him specifically an open statement. I mean, it's pretty common knowledge that we're having some issues. I want to help address some of those issues, and without having to waste a bunch of people's time, we could probably just talk to him directly.
Thank you. Would you do me a favor and tell us your street address?
1606 Wagon Road,
Okay. Thank you.
otherwise known as Donnie Davis's.
Right. All righty.
Mr. Cox.
Yes, ma'am. My name's Clay Cox, also with Texas Pride. I've been here in the market since July 1, right before the hurricane. You can tell by the frost in my beard, I've been in business a long, long time, about 44 years. So I moved here to help this smaller private company become a little bit larger, more professionalize and grow with the marketplace, going from, this was, I guess, Kevin's first community service to being for 1,200 communities we have now. So I'm here to listen, but also answer any questions that you may have. But the only thing I can say I know has been different is
Can I
that.
interject? I apologize. Can I, so, I don't mean to be rude, but as this is an agenda item, I believe we don't need to use it during the public comments time. I wouldn't want it limited to 3 minutes as this is part of the agenda item. So, again, I don't want to interrupt, but I think that is probably more apt for the agenda item. And then we have more than 3 minutes to discuss, and
Sure.
you can parlay with council and things like that. And so it gives more of a dialogue opportunity if it's done during the actual agenda item. I think that was the intent. Okay, apologize, thank you.
Mr. McJucker would like to speak during the Texas Pride portion.
Okay. Is that everybody? All right. Item 4, consider and take action on the consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Lots of discussion. I got questions regarding the
Did you
payment.
want to pull any certain items?
I'd like to pull all of them.
Okay.
The draft minutes, and I don't know if there's a reason to this. If there is, maybe Nancy, you can clarify this, but the draft minutes have gotten very extensive in explanation regarding public comments, but not very extensive in our comments. And I don't know if there's a method to that madness, but there's a lot of, I don't know, different adjectives used.
Okay, if you could just give the corrections that you'd like, that would be easier for us to go back and
Well, it's not just
Update them.
corrections, it's situations where things are noted, but then things are not noted.
okay, well, that's a correction. Which ones would you like?
All
We'll
of
start
them.
with the one on September 24th.
On the 24th, it basically, like, the public comments are extremely detailed, but they're not detailed for everyone. So Ben's comments are detailed, Christie's comments are detailed, Angela King's are somewhat detailed. There's a lot left out in what Sarah Dvorak ended up having to go through.
Okay, is there
Yeah.
something missing that you'd like added?
I mean, just all of it is
Because the minutes are
wrong.
taken and then drafted, and typically we watch the City of Simonton video to make sure we're not missing big things. So if there's something missing,
I mean,
Let's know
there
and
was,
we can
there was a
add.
lot missing from it. I mean, I can go down the detailed list, but it's a little vulgar for me to
No,
go down.
please go down it. I'm curious.
Sarah was flipped off by several members of the public.
Several or
and,
one?
that's not appropriate to
I
note
just said
in the
that.
minutes.
I just said that, but you yet note her comments and then assume that they were directed towards myself and Burns and Faith Haley.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying. If it's not directed towards properly, then we take a note and let's correct them.
And on page 5, it says here, presumably, council member Cox, Haley, and Turner. In reference to a statement that Kelly made. So I just, these are incorrect.
No, that's
Councilmember
incorrect.
So she was-
Haley stated.
Okay, so you're
That didn't
concerned
happen.
that Faith's
It didn't happen.
intent for what she meant is incorrect. Do you have a objection to the way that that was recapped for your statement?
Read the
Right
statement,
here.
Lori, please. If you read that statement, it makes no sense.
Councilmember Faith Haley stated that the people who voted for them, presumably Councilmember Cox, Haley, and Turner, would be crazy to attend this meeting tonight. She stated those people are so nice, they don't want to come to the meeting, but they do want their taxes lowered. Did you not intend that to mean all three council members that are noted?
It's a
She did.
presumption, so meeting minutes cannot represent presumptions, period. It's a meeting minute, it's actually what's stated, not presumed.
Okay, what else on the 24th?
There's, like I said, there's several indications where Sarah Dvorak, her comments were left out, her statements were left out, things that were not noted. It just isn't an accurate representation of what actually happened.
Okay, but I need you to give us what specifically needs to be added or removed or revised,
If
because
you
that's
wanna
what
be
this is.
specific, I mean, Kelly Matula's incomplete, I don't know, 5-6 minute statement is not accurate. It's limited in what she actually stated. When it goes down to us voting, it's very short, sweet. There's no absolute mention at all of any discussion that occurred during those times. And I know there was a lot of discussion in 21 cents. There was a lot of discussion in debt promotion or debt service portion. None of those things are listed, and I just don't understand why all the public comments, well, not all, but most of the public comment stuff is listed, and then the actual voting stuff, these are not accurate minutes. They're not accurate.
Okay, so the one item that you pointed out about Councilmember Haley, she does not disagree with the way that it was recapped. What else did we specifically corrected?
Again, you don't make presumptions in agenda minutes.
Okay, the person who said it has no objection about it, so I'm asking if is that the one you want us to reconsider whether or not
I don't
we-
agree with approving minutes that are not accurate.
Okay. Any other further comment about this, the September 24th? Any corrections or?
Well, I understand what she's talking about. I mean, this is, when I read through it, I thought, my goodness. So, I don't know.
Do you have any specifics about add this or take off that you could share?
Not specifically, it's just an overall feel about it that I didn't really, I mean, there was an awful lot of what people said. So, I guess I've never seen such long public comments that every single thing they said or was there. So, it's unusual. Have we
In
done
general,
this before?
y'all have asked for
Something that's
more
so
information. We have a new city secretary who's trying to cover and give all the details that she can. So that's really the difference right now.
Okay.
If, as a council, we want more or less, we certainly can make that request. Any other discussion about the 24?
No, ma'am?
Philip, since we have a motion and a second on the entire consent agenda, but we're going to separate them and do one at a time, do we need to redo the motion?
No,
for that
the
second?
motion is defeated because each item is pulled out of consent, so there is
So we're
no
starting
longer
fresh.
something to consent. So yeah, each item will be taken one at a time.
Okay, so for the minutes of September 24th, do we have a motion?
I make a motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
I think it needs to be clearly discussed that the voting section of what we actually take action on is not depicted in these. There's a lot of public comments, there's a lot missing from the public comments, but when we approve minutes, that is what the government, the county particularly, comes back to and says, well, if council didn't approve it or council did approve it within those minutes, that's what makes something ratified and/or official, if you will. So I would like to see
So
that.
the vote is recorded by,
The vote is
council
recorded,
member.
but zero discussion is recorded. There's nothing here other than who voted what. And we clearly have discussion at each of them.
okay, if we take an example of the tax rate, because under item B, page 4, discussion and action to approve the ad valorem tax rate. There wasn't a ton of discussion there,
There was.
that I recall.
No, there wasn't.
Councilmember Matula made a motion to approve 29 cents, seconded by Councilmember Boudreaux. The vote, there was no discussion. As you know, I always call for discussion after the second. There wasn't any, and it was defeated. So then when you go on, there's, the motion failed, another one, it failed, and then more discussion is listed here. And that was mainly recapped of Councilmember Matula, Boudreaux, Haley, and then the motion and the vote, which was approved. So there is discussion included, but if there's something specific missing,
You're basically
certainly it
saying
could
that
be
every
added.
single item under new business that we discussed and/or other than this previous where Kelly had her speech or whatnot prepared, that there was no discussion on anything we took action on, correct? Am I understanding you
Well,
correctly?
first of all, don't put words in my mouth.
I'm not
I
asking.
am
I'm not putting words in
recapping
my
what's
mouth.
on the paper because I'm trying to clarify what it is that you're continuing to say is incorrect.
That's
You
exactly.
just would like, in the future, more content included as we go, or?
It's
Is
just
that-
like, it's just like what we're doing right
I have to
now.
go back and listen to the video. I'm just not sure. I mean, you say it's all there, she says it isn't, now I'm wondering. So I'll have to go back and listen to the video myself and see,
Okay.
before I could say for sure that we should pass it.
When I prepare these minutes, I try to be as accurate and thorough and respectful as I can be. If this was during tax and there was a lot of, for lack of a better word, bickering, so I will put that in as a lengthy discussion instead of calling people out or trying to embarrass them, or she said this, he said this, so I try and get it in there, but in the nicest, most respectful way.
Any further discussion on the 24th? All right, we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
That one's approved. Thank you. The next item is October 1st minutes. This is Courtney, do you have items that need correction or update on this one? Which you requested it to be
It
pulled
kind of
off?
goes back to the same thing, and I guess maybe in the future we can just remove all of these things from the consent agenda to allow us to discuss them a little further, as opposed to just saying yes, but either way.
Well, actually, since y'all received these the week prior, if you have corrections, you could send them to the office or call us before the meeting. And that way updates could be made and be ready to present as part of the consent agenda. Part of consent are items that are generally routine and don't need to go item by item. So if we can create them properly, or if you find a mistake, we're happy to entertain that before we're at the meeting. So on this one, you have some items or any items that you thought needed revision.
I mean, it's the same, it's exactly the same as this one, it's just less. You have no public comments, because there were none. But
Correct.
then our discussions are very limited in description as far as any kind of things. Now, I get it, a lot of that was removed from that agenda, but there are no listing of any said discussions. It's just stated that the ordinance will require to transfer, we could do it in the future. You know, that the KSB doesn't have a budget, which is not true, they do. All of that, again, it's just, it's very, it's just.
It's supposed to just be a recap.
I understand that. I don't want to have to go through every one of those. And trust me in the fact that more of my questions are here, but when I start to look through here and I go through these items in the consent agenda, which would just be kind of checking the box and approving all of them, it leads me to these as well and the discrepancies in those.
All right. Do we have a motion on the October 21st meeting minutes?
I make a motion
To,
accept it.
thank you.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Thank you. Next item is the council report for August of 2024.
I'm sorry, Mayor, if I may, we didn't record Councilmember Burns Turner's vote because
Oh,
he stepped
he won't
out,
either.
and so it's.
Oh, I
Right,
didn't
so
really
it-
see,
it-
left the room. I
They did it in
apologize.
two times, so I just want to make sure, and now we,
Teaching me how to lock up.
yeah.
Oh,
We owe him that.
So I need to give you the opportunity to be included in the vote.
Sorry.
That's okay. On the draft city council meeting minutes of October 1st to approve or no.
We're voting.
I took the vote without because I didn't
Okay,
realize
fine.
you left. I'm so sorry.
It's okay, I'm
Okay.
sorry, I had to do that.
Thank you. No, you're good. All right, the next item is the city council report for August 2024. Do we have a motion?
make a motion to revisit it at a later meeting once it's described.
Okay, Councilmember Cox is voting, making a motion to table. Do we have a second?
I'll second that one.
Any discussion?
There's a few things.
Okay.
Page 2, Amazon.com, $297.97. There's anchors, heavy duty
Say-
tape.
Don't mean to be rude, but I cannot hear you.
Okay. I think you got the
I
AC
do,
down there. Okay. The, on page 2, the $297.97, it's the anchors, heavy-duty tape, straps for trailers, tow, ring, low, and copy paper.
Those,
Most of those should not go in an office supply, sure.
okay.
True. There's no copy paper for sure, but it should have been divided out. Probably shouldn't have been ordered all together.
The anchors, so you'd like us to remove,
Whatever.
I think the anchors are wall anchors for hanging
Okay.
things, and so that really would belong there.
Okay, how about the heavy duty tape?
That's packing tape.
Okay,
Straps for the
For
trailers
trailer.
could be removed.
how about the tow ring glove?
I'm assuming
I'm not
it's for
sure what
this
it's
trailer
for.
as well. I'll have to look on that.
Yeah. those
So the
need-
strap for the trailer and the tow ring. Move to. Okay. What else? ma'am?
Where is that? I really think if we would like to see the Ardura payments. How many payments have there been? I was thinking
Go
on
back
the
on
first
one.
page, yeah. How many payments
so
have there
the-
been?
I don't remember that. They, one safe was about 6 because they billed us in stages as we went along. It was in their contract that when we get to this stage, that final payment of $4,442 closed out the contract.
I'd love to see just a separate full page on Ardura and what we did pay. Do you know what the total cost is? I know what it was, we had it projected at or told what it was, but is that what it actually came to?
Under a summary. Okay, I can get that for you. I cannot quote you the dollar amount off the top of my head, but we did go through and revise that before I approved it. I did make sure that it was within budget, which it was, but I don't want to quote you just a number. Okay?
And under facilities on page 3, what is the sliding doors? Is that our project over there? And it would, again, while you're, like, I think there is council, we need to see, what we have paid, a sheet totaling that, what's been paid and
So that's what this is for
the
monthly.
ARPA.
Oh, for the ARPA.
Yeah.
Okay,
Just in.
I'll put that on the summary, so it's all together.
Okay. And I'm supposing because Berkshire Oaks is still under miscellaneous and all this is because it's not under HR because we're running 2 months behind.
Yes.
And why did we need extra help for filing?
Because we don't have enough staff.
In
To make sure
August?
that we're getting, to make sure that we're getting things, bills that have been paid, where Julie, people say Janie, where Julie came and said, some things are not in fund view yet, like maybe the scanned invoice isn't attached yet, those sorts of things. She's catching all of that up so we can close our fiscal year. So we paid a few hours for some additional help. Fortunately, Nancy has even pitching in there just to make sure there's every document, invoice, you name it, is added in. Any
So,
further discussion? Is it about this item
Yes, it is.
specifically?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
So, on the October 1st meeting, the other council members voted to pass the budget adjustments in the ordinance number 2024-08. Would this not need to be ratified as well? Because this is August, we're not done with that budget. So these changes that would be made in this particular budget or additions that are listed in the incorrect categories would also need to be ratified as a final ending in the budget for 2023, 2024.
well, we're not close to closing 2024.
I understand, but we went
This is
through a
just a
whole
check
rat-
report of what was paid.
Right, my question was to him. We ratified the budget at the last meeting, kind of preemptively or prematurely, I should say, because we have not closed out the year, correct? We would need to make these adjustments as well.
Right, so last week was or last week, felt that way, right? Last month was a budget adjustment based on the changes that they'd already identified to get that corrected. And then any other changes that have come up, whether they need to be moved from categories, et cetera, will continue as things are balanced, and then there'll be another budget adjustment, et cetera. So it doesn't all have to be done one time.
Right,
By
so-
the end of the year, sometimes it can be done monthly. It just kind of depends on how things come in and the time you have to make those adjustments.
So technically,
And
we
to
can't
adjust-
approve this until those adjustments are made, right?
That is incorrect. So-
I'm asking.
Well, I'll
hang
tell
on.
you why, because the accounting and the forward spend that we already knew about, that was presented last month, or at our last meeting, it accounted for this already.
It did not.
Yes,
I went
did.
through the budget numbers, it did not. That's
Okay.
why I'm asking you. If
Great.
we need to further adjust those numbers, it did not list anywhere
It will
near
not go
a
negative.
$96,000 or $97,000 payment to Ardura. It did not list that at all, and that's going to be an adjustment into our budget. It would need to be
No.
further ratified once it's put into the proper category, right?
I think your current budget from last year had the Ardura.
It did, but this puts us in an overage and it's in the wrong category because we have so much in miscellaneous. So rather than ratifying and approving things that are in incorrect categories, would it not save us time to put them in the accurate categories and then ratify it once September is finalized in that 180-day period that we discussed last time.
Well, do you mind if I just show one thing that's related to what we're talking about? Because it's actually not in the wrong category. So if we use Ardura as the example for this $92,000 one that you just mentioned, it's in consulting where it belongs. And it was accounted for when I came with the request about which buckets would need to be changed. So you're seeing here, this is just the council report. This is payments made. And if I need to move a $25 charge for straps for the trailer from office supplies into emergency management, the fund is already there. It's not going to be short, so we don't actually need to change the budget. We would just correct this line item so that this is matching in the report.
That's not my question. On this particular expense report, you have exactly to the penny our dollars spent for consulting, which you do have Ardura in, as well as several other things. These other items would also fall into a consulting category once you move them, and that right there is a $2,000 or $3,000 difference, unless we're just going to pull that from some other kind of fund somewhere, wherever we decide. But it would require ratification of the numbers being accurate from what I have researched and been told and everything else. And it did, our last expense report did not show this $7,000 payment to Ardura.
Right, because that's a monthly report.
Understood, but it was halfway
Okay.
through August. So that was my main reason for pulling this, because they're still in the wrong categories.
Any further discussion on this item? The council report?
I wonder why the credit card bills are never listed for the council report. Because they are paid every month.
That would be because she's breaking them out and giving you each expense. So, I mean, I don't know if the software could add a column saying payment method, but I could certainly ask. So for example, the Fort Bend Herald on page 2. We pay the Fort Bend Herald using our card. It just doesn't indicate that that was paid by card versus check. We could do that, I think, but I certainly have to ask since I'm not the one that uses that software program. You know, Amazon's paid by card,
Well, it'd be
AT&T,
easy to
T-Mobile.
just put Fort Bend Herald CC credit card.
So I'm saying, I'll ask and see if there is another field. There probably is, but since I'm not the user, I don't overpromise
I
that.
don't know if that's a good description. The AT&T technology bills and the T-Mobile bills are also paid by credit card, and they are listed on this report. Your
Yeah, everything that you're
332,
She's saying all the expenses, she's just breaking them out and not saying that it was paid with the credit card.
But there are a lot of expenses on the credit card that are not listed here.
How do you know that?
Because I have the credit card bills.
What's missing?
I have to
No,
go down
what's
the list.
missing?
I'd have to go down the list, Kelly.
Then do.
I don't
That's
have
what,
them in
you're
front of me,
making
but
the
no, I'm
objection,
just-
so do it.
I'm making the objection that this is not accurate.
I want to know what is missing off of the credit card bill. If you're going to make the statement, then have the proof to back it up.
I didn't make that statement initially.
I think she wanted to pull the item and then the next meeting, then she could bring that information in. So, because she
I would
doesn't
say-
have it listed.
I get the intent, if that's accurate,
Yeah.
what she's saying about you. But that's the point of going through this in advance and bringing your objections with, so that we don't just table routine items, or that we can get them corrected if they need revision. Do we have any further discussion on the council report? All right, I believe we had a motion to, did I lose track? Motion to table this and a second. All in favor of table?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
All right. Do we have a new motion?
Make a motion to accept the council report.
All right. Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Did you sign this, Chad?
No.
Okay, next item is it's called the payment report. It's the summary. This is the one that the report type that Julie spoke to last month. Do we have a motion on this report?
I'll make a motion to accept it.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Thank you. The motion carries. The last report in this section is the year-to-date revenue and expense. Please notice the blue text right at the front of the first page that this is not final for 2024. There are still expenses coming in that will need to be added before the fiscal year is closed out. This is accurate as to what was entered by 10/18, which is in the top right-hand corner for you to be able to see. Do we have a motion on this report?
I'll make a motion to accept it.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Thank you, the motion carries. Okay, moving on to item 5, new business. First up from Revenue Management is Ryan Fortner.
Thank you, Mayor Boudreaux, City Council, good to see you all again. Before I begin, just a few things. First of all, in Walker presenting, if my voice crackles, I apologize. There's something in the air, and I'm having skin allergies right now. Second of all, what you have in front of you is the confidential report. Just to remind you all that it does list individual business filings, their dollar amounts. So if you want to ask me a question about a particular business, please do not list the dollar amount so we can stay within the Texas tax code. Lastly, if anyone's been paying attention to the Dallas Fed or anything that you've seen on the news, and working with the financial advisors and city administrators that we work with for both the city of Kenny, Dripping Springs, our municipal utility districts, and the city of Houston, one of the trending things that we've seen in this election year is that people are starting to become more diligent with their funds. People are just being more, things cost more now, so they're watching after their money. And we will see that evidence later on in the report, and I can address specific questions on that as well. Turning to the first page, well, pardon me, the third page of your report, just looking at some overall demographic information through the month of October. The city is averaging $294,453 per year. That averages out to $25,156 per month. Currently,
It's page number 5.
oh, pardon me, yes,
It's
page
okay.
number 5.
It's the fourth sheet, but it's,
Okay, it looks like this.
yeah.
2024 with 2 months remaining, $303,339.93, averaging $30,333 per month. Looking at your yearly allocations 2019 to the present, you can see that everything is up and to the right. Still looking at 2024, wondering what that's going to be with the 2 months remaining. Again, as evidence, as I mentioned previously, that just some revenue streams are down. 2000 to the present, the city has received $3,716,807.61 in sales taxes. So looking at the following page, page 6, 13 months from September through September. September of 2023, you had 466 tax filers that made payments into the city in dollar amounts from 1 penny up. In 2024, you had 511, and that is a 10% increase, and that's good. We don't want to see a month where our tax filers fall down. Overall, you see 511 tax filers per month when you look at this 13-month total. In 2023, February reflected 604 tax filers. That is not unusual. You'll notice that the months there in bold are your quarterly filing months. This is when businesses are allowed to file quarterly. They're truing up their statements. This is when audits from the state come forth. And so usually February, that's businesses that remitted sales taxes and made money in December. And so historically, we will see February being a higher month for all of our clients. On the following page, your top 25 sales tax filers for the last 12 months is there with their individual filing returns. In all, the top 25 sales tax filers remitted $345,000 to you all in the last year. You'll see the sales taxpayer breakdown there by the category and how much they pay. That number does not normally change. For September of 2024, on page 8, you'll see the top 25 sales tax filers, again with the individual returns, $20,662. There was some movement in the sales taxpayer breakdown, mostly with the higher categories. Currently, to-date recovery, $36,905.80, which we'll address in just a moment.
It's year-to-date?
I'm sorry?
Year-to-date?
That's current. That's 13 months, and we'll address that in just one moment.
Okay.
On the following page, as to mention, as everyone is aware, not most, but a lot of money that's coming into the city comes from e-commerce. You will see the September 2023 through the present top 10 there, and their cumulative totals, as well as the top 10 e-commerce accounts for September 2024. You will notice that your top 3, top 4 just never change, and I don't expect that to ever be the change. I expect it to stay that way. We found 15 physical locations that made sales tax filings within the district as well. So looking on page 10 for October of 2024, the city received $23,051.65. This time last year, $50,953.72. That is not an indication that the city has lost money. That is an absolute indication of part of the recovery that was made for the city. That will skew the graphs going negatively forward, but that is a good problem to have. So I want to bring that to your attention so that you realize that this time last year you did not have just an amazing month, and this month it fell apart by, because that's a 54% decrease. We currently show for your fiscal year $23,051.65 received. October historical allocations are represented there, and as you can see, as mentioned in 2023, that $50,000 is an exception, not the rule.
I mean, that was a recovery last October.
That was a multi-year recovery on an e-commerce account, yes. It went back 6 years.
Thank you.
Okay, so on page 11, as mentioned, with sales tax amounts being down slightly, every year what you want to see, or what normally you will see, is if you compare, say, 21 to 22, look at January, you'll normally see an upwards to the right trend, whether it be slight or an extreme trend. Normally, historically, you will see that. But in 2024, you saw a downward trend in January, an upward trend in February, a downward trend in March, an upward trend in April, an upward trend in May, an upward trend in June, a downward trend in July, a downward trend in August, a downward trend in September, and then of course, as mentioned with that recovery, a downward trend in October. Again, what we'll do is we'll gather confidential data from the state. For your city, it's about 24,000 lines in Excel. And it will list 2 years of data, and we're able to go through and look at that and look at each individual return, look at them side by side and see who paid what, when did they pay, and we see no situation here where one of your major tax filers has either fallen off or is under remitting, or where sales tax dollars are going to a neighboring city or a county or a special purpose district. And so this is just indicative, and again, I have clients, I have municipal utility districts that have 8 businesses. I have cities that have, for example, Montgomery, that have up to 1,000 number of clients, and we're overall seeing this trend where there's just more fluctuation this year because, as we've noticed and as economists have said, people are just being more wise with their money now. It makes it very difficult to set a budget because normally year over year, you have this, like I said, an upward to the right trend. I mean, when you look at 2020, the city did very well. There was only 2 months in 2020 where the city underperformed, and almost the entirety of that was e-commerce. So this is not to be an alarmist. This is not to give you heartburn. This is just to let you know that when you look at this, it is not because we are not doing our due diligence or because something has fallen off. It's just a trend that we're seeing across the board with a lot of our clients. That said, we have got everything teed up. There are 2 more months in the calendar year. There are 4 more months in your sales tax allocation year. We will close out 2024 sales tax calendar year in February, as I mentioned, and that will capture dollars received in the city, both e-commerce and on the ground, in December. And with that, that concludes the report, and I'm happy to answer questions or take action from council as needed.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for coming from Austin to give us the update.
Can I ask a question? So this is all on sales tax? If I'm out of order, I'll stop.
It is on sales tax.
So as a member of the EDC,
Yes, sir.
you had mentioned e-commerce.
Yes, sir.
So you were able to collect, or you were able to get the sales tax for the people in Simonton that are purchasing products through e-commerce to come to the city of Simonton?
Yes, sir. It's
Even if there's a problem with addresses?
We've addressed that, and so we've addressed that both with the city, with the comptroller.
Okay.
And the only problem that you're going to have there, and this is not a situation that is limited only to Simonton. The issue that you will have there is the fact that when it comes to, for example, let's just use Amazon. Okay. Amazon, there is no, and we have worked for years on this with multiple levels within the comptroller's office. The comptroller and Amazon does not list 123 Main Street, Suites 112, remitted 2 cents. Amazon will take a general area that they have, and they're very good. Their territorial boundary lines are very, very accurate. But they will take that area and they will allocate those sales taxes as a lump sum total. And they will give that to the state, and the state will remit that back to Simonton.
Okay.
Will there be issues where point of sale, maybe an item goes over here, it should go over there as far as sales tax? That happens. And honestly, if you could help me figure that out, that's $1 billion a year solution. And I would be wearing much different shoes right now. But it is something that there are 9 of us in this state that do this service, and all 9 of us are trying to figure out how to solve that, and the state would love for us to solve it too. But it's almost an impossibility sometimes when it comes to individual things.
Yeah, I just.
And I've worked with EDCs before, and that's one of the questions they have now. Every EDC has.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
I won't chase that. You're already chasing it. Thank you, sir.
Council, any questions for Ryan while he's here with us? All right, thank you so much.
If it
Actually,
pleases
appreciate
council, and with permission, the reward of good work is more work. I have been asked to speak to a municipal utility district in Katy, if I might be excused.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much, council.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
With everything coming on in the holidays, I would like to try to meet with you all in December for a calendar year recap. We will make every attempt possible, but usually the last 2 weeks of December get flipped up, and all those meetings happen, and myself and my other staff, we're running quadruples in the evening. So if we can make it happen, if not, we can do a January recap of 2024.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Look forward to
Thank you all very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thank you.
All right, Clay, we're back to you.
Good.
Thank you for being patient, waiting on that.
Pardon me there, I was going to speak before the item.
For the public comments for the agenda item.
Well, go ahead, you
Okay.
barged in there.
Not in barge in, I signed up to speak
I hear
with
you.
the city secretary. I'd like to
Go ahead.
barge in. I don't barge in. This is what I did. About 2 months ago, when this issue came up to the community, I promised that I would do a survey. Survey response exceeded my expectations. So what you're seeing on that particular document is it relates to Texas Pride, how the community wanted to respond. Admittedly, these are the first 25. The people that responded had more emotion to it. Full disclosure, I have no problem with Texas Pride. I picked my trash up. I was here when they were hired. And I think they're a good choice for Simonton. But the people here, I wanted the council to be aware of what the survey respondents said. 80% of the respondents lived in the city, so take that with a grain of salt. When asked if these respondents had been skipped, 80% said at some point they had been skipped. Texas Pride has a contract to provide a certain level of service. Are you satisfied? In order of 5 stars down to none, we had 12, 24, 8, and 48% had 1 star saying they were very dissatisfied. Once again, indicating that the respondents, being the primary respondents, they were the most, they wanted to be heard the most. That's the way I saw it. The mayor previously said that the last time they went out for bid, that other providers were higher. How satisfied are you with the price you're paying for garbage collection services? And 4 stars for 37.5. So we had 5 stars working down 16.67, 37.5, 8.33, 4.77, and 1 star was 33.33%. So a third of people probably paying too much for the service they received. There was a time that individual homeowners had their own garbage services. Should the city continue requiring residents to use a single provider, 68% of respondents said that the city should allow us, being the community, to hire people that they wanted to hire. And I think that just comes out of a lot of the people that hadn't been picked up for whatever reason. I'm sure we're going to hear why that might have occurred and what remedies there may have been. Question, presently recycling is included. Do you use recycling? And 44% said they never use recycling. Of these respondents, and bear in mind that they were probably a little bit more agitated than the average. So the question was, would you, for Texas Pride to provide recycling collection, their trucks have to visit Simonton twice every week. If it would lower your garbage collection bill, would you be willing to stop requiring that option? 64% said yes. Now, once again, take it with a grain of salt. These were the first respondents. Within the city's contract, Texas Pride, can I finish? I'm almost done.
Okay.
Texas Pride Texas Pride agrees to pick up 1 heavy trash item. 52% of the respondents said they hadn't taken advantage of that. And the last question is, presently Texas Pride collects garbage on Thursdays, and what do you think of the days? And 63% agree Thursday is a good day to pick up. Thank you.
So I have a question for you. I was trying to jot down the numbers as you were reading the respondents. Did you say you had 92 or under 100 or?
We actually had
respondents?
We had more respondents than I'm reporting here, basically because that's when it starts costing a lot of money to provide this survey. When I initiated the survey, I thought we'd have 10 or 12 people.
Where was the survey?
It was Survey Monkey.
How was that sent out to the
It
public?
was via a Facebook page.
What Facebook page was that?
My Facebook page.
Oh.
Simon, Texas.
So you're not
And
on that page, then you couldn't be a part of this
I have
survey.
no idea because I'm not on the other private page. It doesn't allow.
So my question really is, if there, let's say there's 350 households in the area, more or less, do you think you had 100 people take the time to respond? 50, 25? I know that the first thing was
Under 80 people. What I was going to recommend is this is by no means scientific because of the nature of it. However, it is an indication. And it might be a great idea for the city to take a non-binding kind of resolution, kind of vote, just to let people have a place to say what's on their mind and maybe kind of deflate the balloon a little bit when it comes to the community's education.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Nance, you actually signed up to speak on this item. Do you still have comments?
I
You good?
had conversations outside with him, and he's taken down a bunch of notes afterward. You know, ultimately, I mean, with any business, you're going to run into complications. I'm not interested in voicing my opinion of being a Facebook warrior. I'd rather get real solutions. I have 6 kids, so we throw a lot of stuff away. Like, I can't have missed days, so that's a problem that he's coming from a different area to work on, and kind of I guess going to bring the ideas from other parts of the United States to help resolve that. And I think ours is small in comparison to the other ones that he has, so I think it would be something that can be worked on. If not, I've got his card and I give him a call.
Great. Thank you.
But forgive me, I'm not going to stand up.
Nope.
I had knee surgery about 6 months ago, and it's really swelling today. It's been a 15-hour day, so it's
You're
small
perfectly
crowd.
fine.
Don't take it any disrespect, but a lot of y'all are a lot younger than I am, so it's okay. So I'm kind of caught off guard by some of the comments and items, but that's okay. I understand how trash pickups is important. It's very passionate to people. I've been dealing with it for 44 years, so there's not anything I have not heard. But there are some unique items with your city that are not broad spectrum, but how we service to that. So we'll break it into one thing. First of all, just to help us with the items on the survey and do it freely. I talked to Kevin yesterday, who originally set this account up, and that we have the ability now to create a specific email address for the city of Simonton residents. So all that information can be channeled into a customer service rep or a team to handle each one of the situations properly, or in a group. Facebook's not the way to solve problems like that because there's no way to rebuttal. We can hear each person's individual issue, whether it's a bulk pickup, recycling, and things of that nature. I will address recycling first because obviously the participation rate is very low. It's very low in Texas nationwide. I've come from markets where it's mandatory. So you're recycling. If you don't recycle, the city fines you. And you're in those situations, their trash rates are less because materials go to recycle, they get sold, and you benefit from the profit of that. Unfortunately, in Texas, it's not that beneficial to you because right now your disposal, if you go to the dump, or whatever you want to call it, it's around $35 to $40 a ton, no matter what it is. To take any recycling from a commercial community to the recycler, it's $65 minimum just to process it per ton. So business-wise, it's cheaper to throw it away. Okay, but conscious-wise, we don't want to do that. Some materials have value, some don't. So the most common thing that's recycled by weight is glass, right? Glass is the most common element on the earth. Glass gets thrown away, or it gets given to an asphalt company. They grind it up and put it into asphalt for mixtures and concrete. It has no value for recycling anymore because plastic is more important. Your colored plastics, like your Tide detergent or anything that's a thick plastic that's colored, that has value to recycle. They can really just really clean it, or they break it into pellets and reform it again. It's a lot less processing, so manufacturers like that. Clean white paper is a high value. Cardboard fluctuates depending on what China and India do. It can go from $200 to the negative $200 to process it. So we don't deal with that. We just take it to the facility and they sort it, and then we pay per ton to have it done. So if you choose not to recycle, that's your own choice. But until Texas gets the right laws in place, like the city of Austin, the gentleman who's here, it's mandatory there. Okay, so food waste, yard waste, recycled materials, and trash is 4 different trucks. They all have to do it that way, which is 4 trucks on the road versus 1. So it kind of evades the circle of your sustainability. You've got 4 trucks out there burning fossil fuels, so let's not get into that. Trash service is passionate, right? It will come to a certain day. 90% of the markets I deal with are single bill. We go into the city limits, we pick everybody up regardless, and the city pays a bill, and the city deals with the individuals who may not pay their bill, or it's done through your taxes or your HOA association. Depends if you're in a MUD or utility district, all depends. We're in an individual basis, a smaller community like this, which is a great place to live. I grew up in an area like this out of Memphis, to kind of brings it back to home. Is that it's more simplified, you don't have all the issues of the city, beautiful homes, great community, but you don't want the same city taxes and things like the other people have, so you have choices, right? If you want to choose to go to a single company, you'll have 3 or 4 companies out here doing the same thing, picking and choosing. That's your choice. I mean, I can't change it for you, because you're single billed. That's the things that if the city makes one selection and choose one community, that's a different whole different prospect. We'd like to continue servicing you. We gotta find out what those details are specifically by individual address so I can address it. And I will, that's what I do. But I can't say it's gonna be perfect in that capacity. The not receiving the stickers, what I found out in the last 110 days I've been here, which is not a long time, is that there's two potential issues between Wallace and Simonton. I didn't know that. Between the POs and stuff. So well, by discussing with Mr. Nansman, what I'm gonna do is get the billing address, submit it to you, and say we can find out what the mailing address is. We'll start there, because I've lived in a rural area before and I've had a PO box which is different than the city. So I can understand that I can't solve all the issues with collections. Or it may be that maybe we just get the right billing addresses and mail all the stickers from our corporate office. It's $350. It's not a big deal. Instead of going through a third-party company, because we bill out over 100,000 homes a month. And do they make a mistake? I guess. I mean, I don't know. But there's a lot of factors that once it gets into someone else's hands, you don't control it. But we want you to have it. The easiest thing to do would be bring a whole bunch of stickers and here at City Hall, and you need to go get it, right? But then you have multiple cans, and there's a lot of different things to it. So it's more complex. I want to do the web page immediately. That's real quick to do, the email page. So I can answer specific questions to people. We can do, we can't do it. We track everything by GPS, so if a guy's in the neighborhood, we'll know. And I think most cases will go well. The hurricane, I want to step back and talk about this tonight. That was the worst hurricane for non-destruction ever in my 44 years of business. And I've done Katrina, Ike, all of them. Because it wasn't much damage, but all your information systems got knocked out. Your email, your Wi-Fi and power, right? We picked up more trash in the month of July we did in June and May together per household because you had so much food waste from people who didn't have power. I don't know about you specifically out here, but we worked 21 straight days and still were behind because somebody put out so much waste and you can only pick up so much in a day. So hopefully we'll never have a storm like that again. But in the interim, we found different ways to communicate to you. So if we can't email you, can't call you, well, we'll get a car and come out here. We got to do something different because you were trying to reach people at the corporate office, either Kevin by text or somebody else, and everybody's systems worked for a week or two. And you didn't have that much damage. It was not a bad hurricane like other people have seen. So we got to find other ways to divert around that because we get so dependent on the text or the email or even Facebook. And then when it doesn't work, what do? You know, and we assume things, and that's not the right way to do it. You wouldn't know that our truck was out for 18 straight hours, and they couldn't get to the landfill because the landfill was closed, and those are kind of things you don't care about. It kind of happens. So if you allow me to, what I'll start with is the email page, so I can get specific items, and we can, if it's 100 or 500, we can take that. Then get the addresses compared to the mailing list. It's not a big list, it's just the accuracy of it. And if that doesn't work, let's figure out a way to get the stickers to those who pay. And I hope everybody in this room here is not offended by this, but you'd be surprised how much fraud occurs with stickers. I was telling Mr. Nance earlier. We had cut communities where it's $28 a house. Somebody's found a way to duplicate our sticker, they print them out, and sell for $20. And they put them in the house. Well, we can tell, the driver can tell if it's fraudulent or not. So now I've got a guy in your neighborhood who's trying to safely pick up your trash, playing Inspector Caluso, trying to figure out, is this sticker fraudulent or not? That's not the way the system's supposed to work. Yeah. You know, so that's it. I'm not kidding you. It's amazing what people do to cheat the system sometimes. But if you had single bill, this would not be an issue. But you don't, so we're going to have to work through this to find, you allow us to find a way to it. That's all I can think of right now, because it shouldn't be that complicated, but there's factors involved in it that I don't control or we don't control and you as a homeowner or a resident control. So maybe just pick all the trash up and figure out who to pay later. I mean, that's what I would suggest. Of course, I don't own the business, but it could be that bad.
Okay. Sure.
I know that given I think you said 40 days in or 110 days, something like that, 110 days in, I get it. You may not have this answer, but if you would look into it, I'd appreciate it. I've not lived here as long as Burns and Faith and Kelly and that kind of good stuff, but I have lived here for 6 years. Since the inception of the sticker has become the problem. And I admittedly I quit using Texas Pride probably about 4.5 years ago simply because it was been a pain prior to the stickers. It was just an inconvenience, and they wouldn't pick up the trash and that kind of thing. So just, if there's another option, I know you said you do 1,200 different residential areas in general, and I know that they don't all require stickers. I think that is becoming, whether it's an address thing, or we've been told there's gonna be an iPad, and then there's not an iPad, and it just causes a big headache. So if you could look into that, I would
We did
really,
service
really
tablet
appreciate
here a
that.
few weeks ago, and it's working primarily fairly well, except for connectivity. We're losing tech in certain areas. We'll just lose it. You think you put a man in the moon, you can't have Wi-Fi everywhere in the world. That's another thing that's kind of frustrating, because I come from a larger market that's unheard of. But that, we live in Texas. It's a broad city. Your subscription sticker program is so populous because the growth of Houston is so great outside the normal infrastructures of cities where you have MUDs utility districts. And there's more utility districts in this area than anywhere else in the country. And it's because there's small little subdivision building. That's why it's become that way, because those areas don't have billing mechanisms yet. That's what I'm told. You guys that do it all the time, the terms could tell us. But that's what I'm told. You don't hear about utility districts in other areas of the country because they're not growing, they're shrinking. And your areas are outgrowing the infrastructure you can provide for sewer and water and all that stuff. So that's the problem. But I'll try another solution for it. I got to find out why we did it 6 years ago. That is backtracking a little bit.
It was done way less than 6 years ago. I've just been here almost 7 years, but it was in that interim that once that was implemented, I mean, I'll readily admit, I don't have a digital printer at home to be able to just, whip out a sticker and all that good stuff. So
the way we know is because we send a temporary sticker that has our company address on it, and the whole neighborhood, 600 homes, had 7705 Hall Road on every one of them. And our guy, I'll be honest with you, I don't want my helper on the back of that truck spending his time, or that driver, looking at stickers as versus watching the road and the kids in the road and picking up trash, to be honest with you. Because that's dangerous. And things happen all the time like that. So, it's archaic, we gotta figure another way, but I don't have a specific answer right this very minute. But I will do everything I can. If we don't do a good job, get fired, I understand. But I think there's a way to put our heads to this and figure out something better for a community like this. You got better things to worry about, something to trash everywhere. Okay. And I applaud you on the survey, but the email will allow me to get specifics for an individual we can communicate to, not into a public forum that everybody's answers are ridiculed, and that's just.
Is there a way? I'm sorry, Burns. Do you have something?
Yeah, I just had
Go ahead.
a quick question. It's a little bit like Kurt's. When you guys first started picking up the trash out here, and I don't remember how long, we didn't have stickers. We just picked up our trash. So I guess I'm asking, why do we have to go to stickers? Why can't we just not have a sticker? But you did it without them.
Grew so fast that people couldn't start paying their bills because they couldn't keep what they are. That's your payroll, your disposal must be paid on time, or they cut you off. And that's the biggest part of it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And but again, it grows. So you figure 100,000 people, that $27 average, I think is what the whole marketplace is. And trash hasn't gone up that much in the last 10 years. Your home delivery of the Houston Chronicle is twice what trash pickup is. Look at the road. So, but we'll give you time to look at it. We'll see. I want to take it off your plate. I mean, I know you got better things to do. All you guys do to talk about that. And I just pray there's none of the hurricane anytime soon, because you've got to kill a community too. In that case, I'll pick your. If that happens again, we'll pick up every house until everything settles down again, instead of having the individual picking of like that, because that's just not safe. And in our business, hitting a child in the street is not something I want to deal with. I've dealt with that 9 times in my career, and it's horrible. There's always a factor of what happens, and so I want guys looking at the road, the girls look at the road, the guys picking the trash up, and not, another part. So, fair?
Thanks. We
Yeah.
sure appreciate that.
Yep.
Well, we have a staff of 1 right now at the city, so.
Who's
Pardon
that?
me.
You?
We're Nancy and I.
Okay.
So
And Nancy.
just let us get with you and coordinate about the list of addresses.
We'll get my card back. I
We'll
gave
get the emails and all that,
Nancy
and see if we
and,
can't help sort that, but just setting expectations, there's only Nancy.
And I agree, again, if you don't hear anything, we think the world's going well. I'd rather hear what your concern is, we can address it. And if we don't, if we deserve to get fired, then I don't like to get fired, but I sure like to fight my way through it. I didn't move back to Houston just to get fired, but your concerns should be our concerns. And sometimes people on my payroll don't understand that, right? So we have to correct that part, because we're the service business. That's all. We're doing something, you don't want to do yourself.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Appreciate you investing the time to come. Thank you.
Have y'all safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be careful.
Okay, item C is discuss and take action regarding Impress Computers hardware lifecycle report. There's actually no action to be taken at this time, but just sharing with council the report received from Impress about the computers that we have now and their age. I mentioned this during our budget cycle. And this just gives you a recap of what we have and what their expirations are. All of them, all of them are expired at this point. So there's a replacement budgeting tool that they provided on the last page and a recap of the hidden cost of old hardware. And that's just for budgeting purposes. I'm not real sure why they're not on the same cycle as we are, but maybe they don't have lots of municipalities. So that's for your perusal. When we get to the point that we're prepared to recommend what those replacements might look like or upgrades that are needed, we'll bring that back out to council. Item D is discuss and take action regarding Peacock engagement agreement. This is Eddie Peacock, PLLC. I've mentioned them to you before. We used them off and on on a contract basis previously. I'm just bringing it to council for clarity. This proposal would allow us, and they outline for you the different levels of service that we need, or when we need it, so that we don't pay Eddie, who is the highest educated and holds all the certifications for things that maybe a entry type person could handle in their office. So you'll see that they have different rates on page 3, I think, or 4. It starts at the top with Nicola's information and saying that she specializes in bank and ledger reconciliations. And then under hourly billing, Eddie Peacock at $135, Nicola is $85 an hour, and clerical services at a rate of $60 per hour. And the services that we have been discussing are listed here. And so they specialize in software that we already use for finance, FundView. They actually have access to our FundView already, since they have been doing things like when you end a financial year, helping make sure you close the budget in FundView. When the recommendations come back from your audits, they go back in and reconcile those balances that are recommended in the audit. We've had them making those sorts of changes because bring in the expertise and let's do it right the first time we can help it. They will help us in preparing accounting and financial reports. Council has repeatedly asked for different types of reports. They already specialize in this software and find that that's not an unusual request or something that they couldn't help us with. And then liaise with our auditor to help us complete our audits faster. There would not be directing staff. And the idea is that this would start out with a best estimate of 5 to 8 hours a week. Once we get in this with Nicola, and she can do a thorough review of what we have in our system now and what our needs are, we can know how many months would that be? Do we need her for 2 months to do that sort of thing? Can we get this done in the first 30 days and then we would spend 10 hours a month making sure that our reconciliations are audited? So it's by hour, not paying a flat fee because we don't want to pay for time that's not needed. We can essentially walk away or cancel this agreement at any time. There are terms in there of how that works on both ends. And the action, yeah, the action on this is for council to approve the engagement of Peacock.
I'm gonna make a motion that we table this until after executive session.
We have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
I'll second. That's until after we can have executive session.
We don't have a session planned for today, so we'll get to that here in a few minutes when we get farther down the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor of tabling?
Aye.
Aye.
Are we having an executive session?
It says we have an executive session, Lori.
It's-
Adjourn to
it's-
executive session right
Yeah,
there.
it's reserved on every agenda. I don't have items for executive for today, so I'm not planning to do that at this moment.
Can we request that we?
Well, how about, if we have item that needs to be discussed in executive, we can, but that's why we reserve it on the agenda. Nobody's communicated to me that you had an item, so we haven't quite gotten there. How about if we deal with this motion that's open right now? So we have a motion and a second to table the Peacock engagement agreement. All in favor? Did y'all vote already? I'm sorry about that. All opposed?
There.
Okay, so that motion fails. Do we have a motion to enter into agreement with Peacock?
I'll make a motion that we do.
Before we.
Do I have one moment? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I have lots to discuss here. There's no scope of work listed here. It's very vague, number one. Number two, there's also been information brought to my attention by our current auditor that prohibits us approving this and moving forward with Edward Peacock until we speak with Bill. That is why I requested the executive session.
Okay. Any other discussion? We have a motion. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, Burns, did you hear what she said?
Who said that?
What Courtney just
Yeah, I
said?
heard what you said, didn't
He's already made the motion.
So we have a motion
Is he gonna
and a
try to
second.
twist his arm now?
No, I was just wanting to, sometimes he doesn't hear. You know, a while ago you said you couldn't
No, I
hear,
heard.
and I just want to be sure that we heard that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Wait, hang on. You had two different motions there. I asked to table it.
Your motion failed.
Okay,
So we've on
you're
to a
passing
second?
this without, without you?
Yes, ma'am, that is the vote that's on the
Okay,
table. Do you
Mine,
want to make a
absolutely
vote?
not. Absolutely not.
So So we have 2 noes, 3 yeses. Thank you. Okay, the next item, E, I'd like to take F out of order and discuss and take action on regarding ordinance number 2024-09, amending ordinance 010116. City of Simonton, Fort Bend County, providing for an increase in registration and related fees, providing an effective date, providing a severability clause, providing for posting and publishing. All that to say, Nancy has been working hard with permits, and we've come to figure out that vendors, as you might have for the Reyes Fling or the Keep Simonton Beautiful events, and peddlers are in terminology being lumped together and have been for some time when it comes to permitting. So that really should be separated. They're not the same thing. A peddler is, for an example, the company that wants to register and come out and go door to door and sell solar panels. A vendor is somebody who wants to participate in an event for a single day or whatever the amount of time is, and so that's a separate kind of permit. We've treated it separately, but it's not been clear on our website, in our documentation, and the fees. So the ordinance that we're looking at, if you look at the pages that are included, the very last page is the current peddler's permit. It has the fees. Well, it has fees that don't really have any support in a previous ordinance. And that's because we've got vendor and peddler confused. So what we're proposing here is that we amend this ordinance This one is for peddler. Section 4, registration statement, paragraph 17, shall be amended in part to read, every registration statement will be accompanied by an annual registration fee of $100 to compensate the city for the cost of administration of this ordinance. Renewal fee for 5 subsequent years for $20 per year. A fee of $5 shall be charged for replacement of their certificate. This matches the previous ordinance, which looks like it is from January 1st, 2016. That's the one numbered 010116. I'm sorry, I said the wrong number, but a fee of $10 shall be charged for replacement of the registration certificate. So we just would like to clarify and update this ordinance would match the fees, and then the peddler's registration sheet, which is the last, will be updated to match. So that when you go on to register, you fill out the form, it matches what the ordinance says and keeps everything nice and tidy and clean where it belongs. Ms. Nancy, you've been the expert working on this. Have I given the proper recap? Any changes? So there is separately a vendor registration, which has the vendor fees. This is addressing the peddler.
The solar panel salesperson.
Yes.
Not KSB or KSB
No.
as well? No, not KSB, okay.
Right.
How much do we collect for the KSB vendors? $25 fee, is that the difference here?
No.
Nancy, what is
The
the?
vendors pay $50 for their tent rental, and annually they pay $20 for the permit?
It's 30
Or
or
30?
20 on the renewal.
Okay, so 30 for the first year, 20 for the additional years.
So wouldn't we need to update the other ordinance as well?
No, the vendor one is actually accurate. It was the peddler one that wasn't.
All right, do I have a motion on ordinance number 2024-09?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. This motion carries. Okay. Back to item E, fiscal year 25 budget adjustment. Discuss and take action on ordinance 2024-10, an ordinance amending the budget of the city of Simonton, Texas for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024 and ending September 30th, 2025, containing findings and provisions relating to the subject and declaring an emergency. The wording is included because anytime you're going to make an budget adjustment, it is called an emergency. So if you look at General Fund 100, it's labeled A at the top in black marker. This is the item that we discussed at last council meeting, where in order to be more clear about items in particular funds, we would move telephone and internet out of technology, line item 100-10-5030, and move it into the line items that are specific to internet and telephone. So that's 100-40-5301 and 5304. I'm bringing this one to you first since we've discussed it previously and council agreed in principle that this is a move we could and would make. Do you have any questions about it? All right, do we have a motion on the move from technology to internet and telephone?
Where did you take it from?
Technology, right here.
You're
It was
proposing a
$20,000?
$9,000 increase.
No, it's no increase.
Okay.
I take $11,000 away from technology and put it into internet and telephone, and that totals $11,000, and that's why your variance is 0. So we just take that 11 and move it.
But your ordinance is requesting an increase. I guess that was the reason for my question.
Well, the ordinance, it's just saying amending. And we'll make sure that the ordinance number matches what council votes for. It looks like this, right there, it has an A on it, Justin? Is that what you're looking for? That's like old. Previous meeting. I got that from your book, you should have today. I believe, or for October. Well, this is October 1. This is here. Is it October 22nd? Yeah. So
And
look,
then this is the last thing that's there. And then there's this.
Just before.
Here, you can have mine. Does that have A? Yeah, that's the one. Whatever.
I do have
To see the number, the letter.
really ridiculous question. It's probably very elementary in front of my face. Why do we have so many Adobe subscriptions? I know I have a business, a professional computer, kids' computers, everything else. I pay for one subscription. We pay for like 6.
Because it is not personal, you have to have a subscription for each user. Like, for example, I don't have an Adobe license because I'm not changing documents. I need that, and
We
we
have
have it.
6 subscriptions though? We pay for 6 subscriptions every
Licenses.
single month. And they are the same rate as a personal rate, which out of curiosity, is there, we don't have 6 employees. Is there?
Because there's 6 computers, so it's on each computer.
Who's using all those computers? And again, I mean, I have
Well, we
several, I
have-
have a business and my personal computer on the same thing, and I just pay, my kids are on the same thing, we pay for all one subscription, I'm just curious. Same
Well,
thing.
one thing that we do is an annual review with Impress, and we drop things that aren't needed. Like if we have a license that belongs when Nate's there and we're not using a computer anymore, we can change that.
Okay.
So we review the licenses for all of the software with them. That's one thing about having them do all of the providing. I'm really sorry if I got an answer, but do we have a motion on this? Item A? If not, do we have one?
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
I'll second.
thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Item carries. The second portion of this discussion centers around EDC. And so our adopted budget, as it is today, uses funds that are dedicated, sales tax funds that are dedicated for EDC, committed, to fund a portion of the general municipal budget. That's not allowed in the state. So in order to get us in compliance and get ourselves straightened out, I have some proposals for you. So page that's labeled B1 has a calculation revision for the EDC income in the very first section. Then the second section, some funds that are available. I'll define all this for you in a little more detail in a moment, but these are funds that I've identified that could be available if council would like to do that. And then in your bottom section, it shows the total funds owed to EDCs A and B, and this would be the projected sales tax, is $152,678. And the remaining funds owed in that last line of $37,453. If you take the funds that are identified at the top and apply those towards the EDC budgets, you would still have $37,000. So be patient with me. I'm going to explain a little bit more. On page B2, this is the EDC A budget proposed. The center column, so the first column is 23-24. The middle column is the adopted budget we're working on right now. And then the proposed revision is the third column. And essentially, the proposal for A is to restore their budget line items, make a correction from the first page. We're going to get back to it in a minute, so just stick with me. Where the encumbered funds for the ARPA project, the City Hall expansion, currently are in the general budget and should be in the EDCA particularly. So I'm reflecting it there. And then it's 2 pages for EDCA. B2 gives you the totals at the end. So this budget does reflect the encumbered funds in addition to their forecast income. And when you get down to the bottom line where it says variance, under the adopted budget, today we have income slated of $50,893. But we have no expenses, and so that's not that's not balanced. And because this income is designated specifically for EDCA, it needs to have an equal amount of expenses and income in there so that they have a zero, which makes them balanced. EDCB is a little less complicated because there's not a correction for encumbered funds, but your very first line on the first page that says B3, and I'll go back and show it to you all on one page, back at page 1 in a moment, but thank you to Mayor Sabersula, who realized that we had some calculation errors of the 0.5% and 1/4% in the adopted budget, so that's why you see a proposed revision from $101,785 to $104,839. That's a difference of 3,054 estimated income dollars. And then their line items of their budget just restored versus what they voted on as a committee. And then your final page shows the same style of layout. The adopted budget includes $101,785 of income, but no budget expenditures. So in order to correct that, when you restore the budget for the committee, you can make a zero balance at $104,839 total. I know that's a lot at one time, so if you don't mind, let's go back to page 1, B1, and go through it line by line. So the first section, that is what I was just mentioning, that fortunately Mayor Sabersula found a calculation error in the 1.25% rates. So the road designated funds and EDC 4A each earn 1/4%, so that's why they have the same dollar amount for their proposed income, $52,419. And EDCB gets 0.5%, and that should be $104,839. It was in the original adopted budget as $101,785. So when you reduce roads by about $1,700 and increase EDCs A and B, it nets additional $2,849 in income. Do y'all have questions about the income portion before we
I have
move
massive,
on?
I got a big, huge question. We just passed an ordinance, number 1, on 2024-10, requiring the increase or the budget adjustment for the actual part that we control. EDC, we don't tell them how to spend their money until they come to us and ask for changes. So what are we, it's not part of this ordinance, Lori. We
No, it's
approved
not yet.
this
That's why
ordinance,
we're
but
just,
why are we discussing this when it's not on the agenda?
it is on the agenda.
It is not.
Yeah, it is.
No,
I
it's
just-
not. I promise you it's not. Effective account, declaring an emergency, that is the portion of the emergency section that we just listed. That's the
So,
technology.
Councilmember
EDC
Cox,
is their LLC separate from
these are
us.
all budget adjustments that are being discussed and considered tonight. They could all be improved tonight, or we could pick and choose the portions. The council has already approved what we discussed at the last meeting. This could be added to it. I'm separating it out for discussion to make it more clear and concise, since we haven't talked about this yet.
It's not up to us.
Do you have a
Yeah, it
question
is.
about
No,
the
it's not.
calculation?
No, how the budget was done is illegal, and now we have to make it right.
He's over here shaking his head. No, it was not illegal. It was 100% correct. It was over, it's an EDCA and an EDCB is its own LLC. Therefore, Justin, as president of A, makes those decisions. We, as a city, are required to give you your portions of the income that comes in. So your portions that we are
That's wrong.
given to EDC. I assure you, Bill and I spent hours on this one. It's accurate. You
So,
are required as a
If you don't mind,
city
I think
council.
that you've reached your time for this portion of the discussion. If you
Let's
would,
bring
please
in
hold the
the
rest
state
of your
comptroller and
comments.
ask him where the money goes.
Did we not?
So, if you don't mind, hold the rest of your comments for a moment.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's what our legal bill's for.
So, first of all, my apologies. I know that you asked to reserve your comment to this item. I didn't really expect
I'll be.
that we'd be off the rails so early, but we would like to hear what you have to say. If you want to do that now, or if you want to talk about it as we go, that's fine as well.
So I'll make my comment right now. When I went out to the community looking for volunteers to serve on the EDCs, it's so that we would bring the EDCs into compliance with state requirements. So we've asked 12 people in the community to volunteer their time to serve on a committee to do this. When we saw the budget that every nickel that was in the EDC budget was removed from the EDC budget, people felt like they were spinning their wheels serving the community. And then as I looked into the way this was done, the EDC monies have to be separated from the city budget into an EDC budget. So when you present a budget of zero income into an EDC, when actually there's $100,000 coming into that, that is out of compliance with what the state comptroller says that we're supposed to do. And as a corporation, we are subject to the same audits that you are. And if we stay out of compliance and we are audited, and it may be a long shot, if the state comptroller comes in and says, y'all aren't doing what y'all are supposed to do, we're gonna take your EDC away, and $200,000 walks out of the city budget. And it's not a big deal. It's the way it's been done in the EDC since its conception. Daniel and I were on EDCs when it started. We never start off with a zero budget. And so what Mayor Boudreaux has prepared here tonight is the EDC budgets as they should have been accepted into the city budget. In your statement about we can't do anything unless we come and ask you, which is incorrect, because if the EDC and the council approve a budget, there's a percentage of any line item in that budget, 7%, that the EDC can approve an expenditure of without going back to the city council. So we don't need to come groveling to you like a kid looking for allowance to do good things for the city. And that's what we're trying to accomplish here, and that's what we're asking. What I'm fighting for is the 12 people that have agreed to serve on these committees to feel like they're being useful to the city. And the way it's presented, it's like a slap in the face, like you're of no importance to us, which is BS. And I'm going to stop right there. I probably won't make any more comments, but I'm going to let Mayor Boudreaux go forward and present this, and let the cards fall where they may.
Thank you. Okay, so the first section about the income, whether we restore the budget expense items or not, this can stand alone. You can decide not to make the correction. This is a math error. Calculations had an error in it to the tune of $2,849. If we're trying to do our best at the correct estimation, we could make those corrections at this stage. Rather than ending up with $152,678 shortfall in our budget, there are some other items that were not revised before the budget was adopted in the way that happened. So there are funds in the budget that could apply towards the EDC and not send this, the municipal part, the general part, $150,000 in the negative. So if you look at the first item in the second section where it says health insurance, 100-10-5002, when the payroll was reduced from what was in the current budget, I'm going to call 2023-24, it was current when we were working on it. When the payroll was removed, the payroll taxes, the TMRS, and the health insurance were not adjusted down at the same time. And if we're going to come back and request the funds for a new person when we get ready to hire them, that money could be available for use now to help balance the budget for the funds that need to go back into the EDCs for their expenditures. So $19,800 could be reallocated from health insurance. $9,000 could be reallocated from payroll tax, and $2,364 could be reallocated from retirement. That's approximately $31,000. The transfer to EDC 4A, so for the expense side of the budget, so we had in income, we had miscellaneous income, we included all of the items that are encumbered from the previous year's budget. On the expense side, we had that in the transfer to EDC 4A line in the general fund, and that's not the place that it should be. So the reason that you see a $77,000 reduction there is that fund, that money would be available to help offset the expenses for the regular general fund. And then you see it on your next page, V2, because that's where it belongs. And actually, the EDCA budget is transferred from reserves. So it's not going away, but it wasn't. It should be categorized in their budget and not in the city portion of that budget. The city side should only reflect the for expenditure should only reflect the sales tax allocation from the current year. So that's why you would see transfer, the adopted right now is $130,156. I'm proposing that that should only be $52,419, and that's what gives you the $77,737. So then when you follow that down, you take your $77,000 and the unused or available to reassign items. At the bottom, it's $115,000. Round numbers. So when you move the $152,678 into the EDCs, where it should go in order for us to be compliant, the remaining funds owed to the EDC from the general fund budget is $37,453. And I would propose that the council ask the EDCs, or make a recommendation to the EDCs, that they investigate the ability to help fund the zoning project out of their budget to the tune of $37,453. And that way you balance the general fund budget, you've restored the budgets for the EDCs where they should be for us to be compliant, and then you can take that $37,000 once the steps are taken for that to be approved, if it is, by council and by the EDCs. You could take $37,000 from the zoning line item and put it in the EDCs, and then your budget is balanced. They're participating in the project, and the city is not having to slash other things like road work in the budget in order to make a balance.
All due respect, Philip, I'm going to ask you one more time. This particular ordinance that has already passed, that was then brought in the secondary portion of, is listed as a passing of determined and declared that such emergencies exist if and whereof existed by the state. We're not talking about emergencies. We're talking about EDC budgets. We're talking about different types of budget movements that are extremely premature. I have absolutely 100% intention to listen to what the EDC is saying, but this ordinance is not worded accurately in order for us to, we can make these budget adjustments all day long, but all it does is basically put it into other funds, if you will, and say we can utilize it that way for whatever we want, and then just call it well, we used it because it was an emergency. that is based on this ordinance that's written. If we're doing an EDC budget adjustment, then that needs to be worded as a budget adjustment for EDC A versus, and as well as EDC B separately. And those budgets would then be looked at and done accordingly to get, to his point, to get us into state compliance, which we haven't been in several years. However, this emergency passage is not addressing
the last
EDC.
month.
No, ma'am. No,
Yeah.
ma'am. It's been
Yes,
lots
ma'am.
of years.
All right, if you all wouldn't mind, Bill, I believe there's a question on the table for you.
Yeah, so my understanding of the current budget and what ultimately needs to be discovered, whether or not we go into the aspect of giving the EDC's expenditures tonight. Right now, as I understand it, the EDC A and EDC B and quarter sales tax funds that were approved by the voters, those sales tax revenues are currently being allotted to the general fund of the city.
They are not. They're in the budget allotted to EDCA
No,
and
they're not.
EDCB. Yes, ma'am, they are.
No,
I
they're
did the
not,
budget. I'll
Courtney.
speak
I
to
know,
it.
that's the problem.
I'll speak to it. Thank you. I'm asking you.
If they're allotted to the EDCs, how come the EDC budget income is zero in the budget that you approved?
No,
If
the-
I might,
question
if
that
I
I
might
have.
correct you, the budget includes income for the EDCs, but
Right.
zero expenditures, so it's not balanced, and there's no ability for the EDC to function using funds,
the way
which
that,
can be worked out, but the thing that we're out of compliance about is the budget must be balanced, and it's not today because there's income, there's no expenses, and the income right now is being used to fund the general fund. And that we can't do
Which is where the
because it's
non-compliance
required,
is.
right? It's required that be used by the EDCs, not by the general fund.
Right. So if those funds are being used to fund anything for municipal purposes, that is not how they're supposed to be used.
So in our-
That's my concern.
in our budgeting for EDCA and EDCB, we show an expense, which is the way the money comes in for EDCA and the EDCB. We, as a city, transfer EDCA's money to EDCA's fund. Whether or not Lori's putting in a general fund or whomever's putting in a general fund is not the point here. They do have their source of income. They just haven't depicted to us at this point how they intend to spend it, which is kind of what this is doing, but under the name of a state emergency that has not been declared. So the ordinance is inaccurate, is my point. I'm not depicting whether or not they need the money and they want to spend money and all of that good stuff, but us passing this ordinance it doesn't make sense. This
Would
is
you
if
like
the
to-
state has an emergency.
Would you mind to address the emergency language since that, I know that you read this prior to tonight.
Yeah, so
That's-
the emergency language is just specific to the requirement when you adjust a budget, and nothing within the law, or it explicitly states that a city can still adjust their budget as they need it, obviously as we did previously and as we're doing now. The declaration of emergency allows it, it's just a local declaration that allows it to carry kind of the gravitas it needs to say, hey, the unbalanced budgets, not spending like having financial issues is an emergency. We are saying this is a problem and we need to fix it, right? This is worth saying this is a localized state of emergency that we need to take care of. And that's what
So
that means.
just creating a state of emergency in case for whenever it might happen and we don't have to go by EDCA guidelines or EDCB guidelines as far as how those monies are supposed to be spent?
The emergency is the adjustment of the budget.
No, that's not what he just said.
Yes, the emergency is that the budget needs to be adjusted in order to properly reflect what the city is obligated to do. And so, again, I'm not speaking to necessarily the outcomes, if you will, income versus expenditures of the EDCs. I just want to make perfectly clear that the municipal funds, you cannot spend EDC monies on municipal funds. And if right now, if all the EDC funds are just going to the EDC without expenses or without anything to spend it on, then we need to get that corrected as well. And it may not be this tonight, if that's what the council wants to take, but it does need to be quick and in a hurry. to get-
Understood, but we can't pay for things like taxes on payroll and things like that out of an EDCA budget because those monies are meant to be utilized for things like infrastructure and roads, correct? And economic development.
No, correct, you cannot.
Thank you.
Yes.
So that is what my point is that you're trying to make those adjustments within this EDCA budget based on the state of emergency. We just need the ordinance to read differently to make the budget adjustments accordingly, not in the ultimate state of an emergency.
The emergency language is required. That's what I think you're saying, you talked about, is that the not having our finances in proper order is considered an emergency. So the language is, it's not language I chose.
It's just a legal
It's a legal
language, is what
language.
you're saying.
He also just stated it doesn't have to happen tonight, correct?
Well, I mean,
He did say quick and in a hurry.
yeah,
so
I mean,
we're
I
not-
would highly encourage us to figure it out and get everything aligned and properly budgeted, especially since we're in the new FY and we're about to collect taxes in January and as mentioned, comptrollers, et cetera, and you want to get, and then auditors are going to come in, and so, yeah, just getting all those allotted so projects can start moving forward and be projected and do that is absolutely necessary.
So Courtney, was that, I'm a little confused, was that
Sorry.
just, your objection is just to that phrase in the ordinance?
No, the ordinance states multiple categories. So it states budget, city budget, as well as EDCA budget and EDCB budget. The way that EDCA and B work is they're separate LLCs. They're entitled to do separate kinds of projects. Like one can do road work, the other one can do more fun stuff, if you will. And they get a certain percentage of the sales tax, and then the city gives them their money and they say, okay, now tell us how you want to spend it. So we gave them the revenue, we gave them the income and slash revenue. We did not list their expenses in the budget. So now they're going back and saying, well, we want to change our expenses and we want to get a little bit more money out of reserves. So it just needs to be worded more specifically so we can have a better understanding of what they want to do, how they want to use the money. You cannot use the money for things like personnel, administrative costs, things like that, out of EDCA or B, to my knowledge. You have some expense costs, but it's a percentage.
Yeah, yes.
It's a percentage.
Yeah, it's a percentage, and EDCs can hire their own consultants and things like
Yes.
that, yes.
But it is a percentage of
Yes.
their
Yeah, especially if
income.
there's a shared responsibility, like the city secretary is used by the two EDCs, they can help supplement
Right.
that cost, or the city attorney, things like that, right? Those can all, that's all done. So
So-
there is some administrative
Our-
costs that can be captured by an EDC, yes.
So, yeah, so the budget as it's adopted right now, and we're operating under it, is using, because there are no expenses and the EDCs do not have a balanced budget, the funds that actually belong to them are being spent in total by the general fund. For example, if we don't change anything, we've adopted to spend $28,800 on health insurance. We need the ADC's money to pay for that, the way that it is today. We're just trying to clean it up, restore the EDCs. You cannot do that, but we are, and so that is why we need to fix it, so that the document itself is correct. So, since we've already cut the payroll, that's why I recommended those things, but it could be any line item. So we need to take the income that belongs with the EDCs, have it with the EDCs, and then have expenses that match so that they have a balanced budget. And then balance the general one as well. And because I had an error of $77,000 of putting that encumbered money in the second place in the general budget instead of in EDC, it turns out to be a benefit. The city, that 77 can go towards making the general budget whole and not looking for another $77,000 of cuts.
So we're saying if we approve this ordinance with that language, and then you're asking us to make these changes.
It's my recommendation to make the changes. The part, it would still not be balanced all the way, but that would, council would then be sending a request to the EDCs for their next meetings to discuss whether they will take on the burden of a portion of the zoning projects if their project is allowable for their boards. And that would resolve the last $37,000. So we'll have to do this one more time. Because they need to approve, then it comes back and you all approve, and then we would make that last $37,000 adjustment.
As of right now, the EDCs cannot help with zoning, correct? We don't have the funds for it. Or the budget for
Right
it,
now,
I
the
should say.
EDCs don't have any budget for anything. The city does, but since we're not balanced, we gotta get back in balance and be clear about what each one has available to spend.
Yep. Little.
Okay, do you want to take it in parts for discussion and just kind of get some consensus before we discuss a vote or not a vote? Okay, in the top section, to do revision of the calculations and correct the income. Are we in agreement to do that, or you just want to leave it the way it is because it's net's $2,800 and it's complicated?
Can we move this to after executive session? I think that will help tremendously in their understanding of what the moves
Oh,
are
I
being made before
understand
they're
it just
made.
fine.
If you would, I have the floor right now. Okay. Burns, how do you feel about making the adjustments on the income to correct the math mistake?
Yeah.
Yes. Correct the math
No,
mistake?
I don't. We
Okay.
can't, he just said we cannot use EDCA funds to fund the things that you're asking to fund.
No, I'm
So-
asking to stop funding those and put the money where it belongs. You keep saying it
No,
backwards. Okay, so for the EDC budgets for both A and B, do we have a consensus that we would move forward to fund the EDCs as outlined?
we have a legal responsibility to fund them as outlined in the original budget. Those are
Your budget has,
changes.
the adopted budget has errors.
Yeah, but you're
Are
trying to
you
fix it
generally
legally.
in consensus?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay. So then for the moves for the health insurance, payroll tax, retirement, the transfers. I'm sorry, not the transfers, that would be included in restoring their budgets, but we could hold on to that if you want and bring that back to the table when we hear back from the EDCs that they do or don't want to contribute to the zoning project for the portions that they're able to. Or we could go ahead and make those three changes now to help us be less in the negative.
So
What are your
you're
thoughts?
asking, just so I'm clear with the EDCs, you want the EDCs to split the 37,473?
That would be my ask.
Okay.
If I'm
just
a
making
council
sure.
member, yeah. that
Okay.
Council asks them because it's a project that they could take on.
Mhm.
Let them fund that and that makes our budget whole. Okay.
What is, I'm good with the first three line items. And I'm actually good with the fourth one too. But is there something that would behoove us not to move that 77 right now, or?
It's just a correction. So if you were to approve the EDCA budget, then we would move that transfer money into line 200-4710, where it should be. One way or another,
It's gonna get moved.
you gotta move it, and now we're later.
I
into
say
the proper
do-
place.
I say do all four of them.
Okay, so that would leave us with if we go ahead with these moves, that leaves us with resolving the $37,453 at a future meeting. Hopefully the EDCs, we'll send the request to the EDCs, they'll meet, come back and say, we would love to do that. And that would, our next step would be one final budget adjustment related to balancing the general fund. All right, Phil, do you see any procedure or anything that we need to do or not do so that we can complete these particular outlined moves today?
So I understand you've already taken a motion on this sort of the first portion of this. So ultimately, the motion on the whole line item E has not been taken, correct? That's my understanding.
Right, we did the,
So right now, as it stands, we still need to do E. So I understand that this has been, in essence, we have a consensus on this first portion, the general fund 100.
Right.
So my understanding is this second portion, where, you know, again, we discussed it in 4 parts, but it's what, B1, B, I'm gonna put almost
yeah,
there, but,
A, B1, B2.
which also then restores, or not restores, so I understand that the EDCs proposed and actioned and proposed with motion a budget prior to the city's budget, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And these items are those items?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to know kind of where those numbers came from.
The only exception is the $77,000 transfer from reserves on income.
Right, because that
They
was
knew about-
previously encumbered
Yes.
and wasn't properly allocated or
Yes.
properly seen as going forward as being an income or expense that they already had responsible for.
Correct.
Okay, and so all I want to do, and again, I'm not counsel, I just want to make clear that I understand as well, the purpose of this balancing is the fact that the EDC funds obviously were unencumbered, right? Didn't have expenses associated with them, but more so than that, some of the proposed city's expenses were also covered by these EDC funds. And that's the real issue there, which is what you start to correct with, I think you ended up, calling it item 4, but it's the second grouping on B1 with some of the minuses, et cetera, to change those funds, right, on this B1. Okay, so then so what this proposal would do is align the funds that the EDC and the roads, I guess, are already or statutorily and by your voters required to receive, earmark or already identify what their expenses are going to be, thus giving the EDCs sort of a 0 to start, plus the 77, but that's a previous encumbered carryover. And then, therefore, after making those moves, the municipal budget has a negative balance, correct? So there's more expenses than income now that all that's been rectified. And that's the process that's starting with this health insurance, et cetera, that may ultimately potentially be resolved depending on if you can remove the city's budgeted item of the zoning responsibilities, and if the EDCs take those on with whatever excess funds they might have or whatever budget allocations they need to do that.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for the recap. Having discussed all the items on this, we'll call it a list, Exhibit A, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept them as stated.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And we have one no. Thank you, everybody. The motion carries. Thank you so much for your help.
Thank you.
Make sure we get it the right
your
direction. I know the members will be excited to move forward.
Yes.
I don't think that we need an action, although, correct me if I'm wrong, Phil, but the council would like to send the request to the EDCs to help fund the appropriate parts of the zoning project. We don't need a formal,
No, you can't take formal action on that. It's not-
to send the request, we don't need it. So we'll, since we have a number of our EDC members and presidents here, we'll make sure that that gets passed along and addressed at the next meeting.
That's what I'm gonna ask, is if that could be added to the agenda.
Yes. Okay, great. Item 6 is executive session. We don't have any items planned for that.
I have several items planned for that. If we could have that, I would certainly appreciate it. Pending our last one, quite honestly.
What's the protocol?
Under section 551.071, Constitution of Legal Counsel.
Thank you. All right, we're going to adjourn to executive session at 8:43. We will reconvene at 9:03. There is no action to be taken resulting from executive session. For reports, under item 9, we don't have any EDC A or B board reports that I'm aware of. Do you all have anything? I don't have anything that I'm aware of for Keep Simonton Beautiful, other than permits are flowing right through with Miss Nancy. Do you have anything for KSB? Okay. I will be sending out a recap, or since we're not going to meet but once in November, just an update of how the progress is going on the construction project at City Hall. Plumbing is going right along. Still not anticipating that we'll be using the chambers until after the first of the year. Could be a little longer, but we'll get an update once the plumbing and framing are finished. Phil, do you have anything for reports?
No.
Miss Nancy? No, Your Honor. Thank you. Council members?
Is our meeting the third Tuesday of November?
The third Tuesday in November.
Okay.
We're not going to meet the first because of the election. The first Tuesday?
Good call.
So just one meeting. Nobody wants to be there for that.
19th.
Dave, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that for anybody watching, it's so nice that we'll be able to vote up at the fire station and not have to drive all the way over to the school. So, because I have had people say, where do we vote? And so I was just wanted to say that.
Great, 7 to 7 at the fire station on
Will they not be
1093.
using City Hall this year for Election Day?
Is there early voting at the fire station?
Yeah, I did yesterday.
Yeah, I did too.
Okay,
Yeah, works out good.
all right, so our next city council meeting is on the third Tuesday.
Yeah.
What day is it, Justin? Or the 19th, November 19th.
Yeah.
That will be at the fire station at 6:30.
Oh, fire station.
And we will adjourn. Sorry,
No, I'm glad you said fire station.
fire station. And we will adjourn at 9:05.